I felt it the moment I stepped through those glass doors. That slow, heavy burn in my chest. The kind of feeling a man gets when he knows he's walking straight into an ambush and still keeps going. That night wasn't just about dinner. It was the beginning of a war I never asked for but damn sure intended to finish. My name is Bernard Lowe. 61 years old. Retired logistics founder. And at least in the eyes of my daughter, just a broke old man living in a drafty cabin outside Chicago. I built an empire from one delivery truck, but I stepped away years ago because money changes the way people treat you. I didn't want that for my daughter, Harper. I wanted to know her love wasn't for sale. But then she married Brody Miller, a man who treats wealth like oxygen and people like furniture. And tonight, I was about to meet the dynasty he crawled out of. I wore my oldest denim jacket. Let them underestimate me. I learned a long time ago, boardrooms, negotiations, hostile takeovers, nobody guards their throat around a man they think is harmless. The hostess at the Gilded Fork looked me up and down like I'd tracked mud across her soul. Delivery entrance is around back, she said. No delivery, I murmured. It took everything in her not to call security. Harper's face lit up the moment she saw me, relief mixed with embarrassment. She tried to hide it, but I'd raised that girl. I know when someone's cornered. Brody didn't stand, didn't smile, didn't even pretend. He dragged his gaze across my jacket like he was grading trash. You wore that? He said loudly. This is a 5-star restaurant. Bernard, not a truck stop. I forced a smile. It's my best jacket. Harper shot him a look, small, scared, trained. That told me more than any words. Then his parents arrived, Richard and Meredith Miller, self-proclaimed royalty of Chicago's financial elite. To the untrained eye, sure they looked rich, but I'd spent my whole life around real power. Real wealth whispers. These two screamed. Richard refused to shake my hand, citing sanitation concerns. Meredith wiped down her chair before sitting next to me. They talked big resorts, Manhattan deals, millions, moving through their hands. Except everything about them rattled like cheap costume jewelry. Brody bragged about their Bentley. Meredith insulted Harper's nails, her background, her entire existence. Richard called my daughter's responsible budgeting a lower-class mindset. I kept quiet. A man learns more listening with his mouth shut than speaking with fists flying. But when they turned their knives toward Harper, my Harper calling her a liability to their dynasty, I felt something cold start curling in my gut. Then the bill came. A feast that cost more than my first truck. Richard forgot his wallet. Meredith didn't bring hers. Brody's black card got declined 3 times. His second card, too. And then he turned on Harper. You useless woman, he shouted, loud enough for the whole restaurant. You bring nothing to this family. Nothing. Harper shrank. I'd never seen my daughter look so small. So I reached into my pocket and pulled out a frayed canvas pouch filled with crumpled dollars and coins, part of the act I'd planned before walking in. I can help, I said softly, counting pennies onto a silk tablecloth. Meredith gasped like I'd exposed myself. She pulled out her phone not to call for help, but to record me, to show the world the trash my son married into. She sneered. Coins clattered. People stared. Harper cried. Then Brody snapped. He slapped the money off the table, bills floating down like dead leaves. I don't want your garbage, he barked. You're pathetic. He dragged Harper out by the arm. Richard and Meredith fled behind him, refusing to pay, leaving me alone with the bill and the mess. The waiter approached with pity in his eyes. I didn't need pity. I reached into my back pocket and pulled out a thick money clip of crisp hundreds. Keep the change, I said, paying the full bill in silence. Outside, the night air hit me like ice. My reflection in the restaurant window stared back, a tired old man. But inside, the CEO who built a logistics empire from the ground up was wide awake. I took out a phone, not the cracked flip phone Harper thought I used, but a satellite phone reserved for international negotiations and situations exactly like this. It rang once. Fairbanks. A voice answered. Sir. It's Bernard, I said, my voice shedding its tremble. I need a full financial excavation on Richard and Meredith Miller. And Brody. A pause. Then, understood. Oh, and Fairbanks. Yes, sir. Unfreeze my active assets. I'm coming out of retirement. Quick reminder, if you're enjoying this, hit subscribe. Now, back to the story. I looked toward the direction they had driven off. They picked the wrong old man to humiliate. I hung up. And then, my phone buzzed. Harper. Her voice cracked through sobs. Dad. He locked me out. He changed the codes. Dad, I have to tell you something. I signed the house over to them. They said it was an investment. Dad, I think they stole everything. I felt the blood drain from my face. She wasn't calling for money. She was calling for rescue. Come home, I said. You're safe here. But even as I said it, a cold realization sank in. This wasn't just greed. This wasn't just humiliation. The Millers were predators. And they were coming for me next. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of anger. Anger burns hot. And hot things cool fast. What I felt was colder, sharper. A clean, surgical kind of rage that keeps a man awake with purpose. Harper was safe upstairs, finally breathing without fear. And I was downstairs in a hidden room she never knew existed. My command center beneath the cabin floor. The world thought I retired. They didn't know I retired rich. Rich enough to disappear. Rich enough to make problems vanish. Rich enough to wage a quiet war. Fairbanks delivered the financial report at dawn. One look at the screen, and my fists clenched. The Millers weren't wealthy. They weren't even broke. They were criminals, surviving on fumes. Richard and Meredith bankrupted 5 years ago, now running a Ponzi scheme dressed in diamonds and fake Rolexes. Brody, a junior sales nobody on the verge of being fired, dumping money into crypto scams and sportsbook losses. And the worst part? The $50,000 investment Harper signed for, the one that cost her mother's house, went straight to a bookie, not land. My daughter didn't secure a future. She paid off her husband's gambling debt and financed a Bentley they used to sneer at me. But then I saw the last part of Fairbanks' report, emails between Richard and Brody discussing my cabin. They'd researched the zoning laws. They'd priced out the land, and they planned to take it from me. The message from Brody was burned into my skull. He's old. He's soft. Convince Harper he's losing his mind. Put him in a state facility. We can break him. They wanted to take everything. My home, my daughter, my dignity, and bury me alive in a cheap state hospital. They thought I was weak. So I decided to become weaker than they could imagine. I loaded my pockets with stage blood capsules. I put gray foundation under my eyes. I rehearsed the tremor in my hand, the rasp in my breath. If they wanted a dying old man, I'd walk right into their house and collapse at their feet. In not relevant. And the Munger, to not relevant. Brody opened the door wearing a silk robe he couldn't afford. He saw the blood on my handkerchief and jolted back. What the hell? I'm dying, I whispered. Doctors say it's my lungs. I don't have long. Behind him, Meredith appeared with a martini at 11 a. Her eyes flicked to the blood. Her disgust shifted like someone spotting a lottery ticket. Well, don't leave him outside, she snapped at Brody. Bring him in, before someone sees. They didn't offer the couch. They pointed at a wooden chair in the corner like I was contagious. I lowered myself into it, groaning for effect. I just need to settle my affairs, I said. Make sure Harper doesn't get stuck with my scrapland in Texas. Richard froze mid-step. Quick reminder, if you're enjoying this, hit subscribe. What land? A plot in the Permian Basin, I murmured. Nothing special. Just dirt. I thought maybe Harper could sell it for a few thousand when I'm gone. The air shifted. If greed had a sound, it would have been the inhaled breath in that room. Brody Googled the region under the table. Richard inched forward like a wolf sniffing blood. You brought the paperwork? He asked too casually. Old deed, I said, pulling out the folded document. And some ancient geological report. Something about the soil. I never understood it. I accidentally dropped the survey. Brody pounced on it. He unfolded that heat map, the forged one that showed a massive red oil bloom beneath the land, and his pupils blew wide. He didn't breathe for 5 seconds. Richard snatched it next. His fingers shook. He tried to hide the tremble by smoothing the papers. But greed exposes a man faster than guilt. Bernard, this is, he swallowed. This could be worth a fortune. Oh, I said softly. Is that bad? Meredith leaned in, voice dripping honey. Sweetheart, you shouldn't burden Harper with complicated assets. These things require legal expertise. Navigating oil rights, taxes. Oh, it's a nightmare. We can help, Richard said. We'll take the land off your hands. Manage everything for the family. For Harper, I whispered. For Harper, Brody echoed, already imagining himself on a yacht. I trembled, coughing blood again. If you think it's best. They nodded eagerly. Richard's smile was wide enough to split his face. Tomorrow, he said. Tomorrow we'll bring the paperwork. And the Yetterbill to Cummins. Tomorrow came, but so did Harper. They'd locked her in a bedroom the night before to keep her silent. She climbed out the window and sprinted straight to my cabin. She burst through the door the moment the Millers slid the deed toward me. Dad, don't sign it. Her voice cracked like lightning. Brody whipped around, furious. How the hell did you? She shoved past him, grabbed my shoulders. Dad, they think there's oil. I heard them. They plan to take everything. If you. The room froze. Richard recovered first. Harper, he said sternly. Your father is dying. You're upsetting him. Harper. Arter. Brody grabbed her arm. She screamed. Something primal cracked inside me. But I stayed in character. Barely. I just want her safe, I rasped. If I sign this, I need her house released. And $50,000. In cash. Richard's jaw dropped. That's impossible. Then the land stays with me. He stared at the paper showing imaginary millions. He thought of the debts he owed. The sharks breathing down his neck. Finally, shaking, he pulled out his phone and made a call that drained whatever future he had left. They brought the cash. They released Harper's house. And I signed the deed. The Millers cheered like they'd won the lottery. But as they rushed out the door, high on their delusion, I dialed Fairbanks. They took the bait, I said. Perfect, he replied. EPA notified? They will be when the Millers break ground. I hung up. Outside, their car tore down the road. They were chasing oil, but they were racing straight toward a federal toxic waste site. And when they hit it, they wouldn't just lose their money. They'd lose everything. But before I could savor the victory, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. A text popped up. Bernard, we need to talk. It's about Harper. My stomach dropped. The war wasn't over. It was evolving. The text came from a number I didn't recognize. Bernard, we need to talk. It's about Harper. For a moment, everything in me froze. After everything I'd done to get her free, to get her home, I wasn't letting another threat get within a mile of her. But when I called back, it wasn't a threat. It was Harper's doctor from years ago, a routine follow-up she'd forgotten to cancel. Nothing dangerous. Nothing urgent. For the first time in days, I felt my lungs loosen. But the Millers' clock was ticking fast. I wasn't in Texas when they broke ground, but I watched it all on the live drone feed Fairbanks had set up. Harper was beside me, unaware of the magnitude of what those people were about to trigger. Richard stepped out of the SUV wearing a white cowboy hat and a grin so wide it could have swallowed the sun. Meredith strutted behind him like she owned the entire desert. Brody paced with a clipboard, pretending to be important. They thought they were standing on top of a 1,000,000-barrel oil reservoir. They were standing above a federal toxic waste containment cap. The drill rig roared. Dust rose. Richard paced, sweating in anticipation. Then the earth spit back what they'd awakened. Not oil, but gray chemical sludge, exploding upward in a foul spray. Richard staggered back, covered head to toe in poison. Meredith screamed. The workers bolted. Then came the SUVs. Federal plates, EPA agents, hazmat suits storming the site. Richard waved the deed like a drowning man waving a flag. It's my land! It's my oil! The agent snatched the forged map from his hands. He looked at it, laughed, then delivered the verdict that shattered the entire dynasty. Sir, you didn't buy an oil field. You bought a federal Superfund liability, 5 million in fines, mandatory environmental cleanup, bankruptcy, criminal investigation. And then Richard's heart gave out, right there in the toxic dirt. The drone feed cut out. Silence filled the bunker. I didn't celebrate. Men like Richard bury themselves long before I touch them. My phone rang for the next hour. Brody. Voicemails. Texts. Please. Bernard. Please answer. Dad is in the hospital. We're being arrested. They say we owe millions. The people we borrowed from are coming. You have to help us. Please. Please. I let the phone ring until the battery died. He had dragged my daughter through hell. He had stolen her home, her peace, her freedom. And now, he wanted salvation. But I am not God. I am a father. And fathers protect their own. The next few days were quiet. Harper gardened outside, the sun warming her face like she hadn't felt warmth in months. I stayed close, fixing the fence, repairing the porch, learning her silence again. One afternoon, she looked up at me and asked, "Dad, were you always this strong?" I almost told her everything. About the empire, the bunker, the money, the plan. But strength isn't in what you show. It's in what you shield others from. I'm just your dad, I told her. That's all I ever wanted to be. She smiled softly, and for the first time since this war began, she looked free. A week later, Fairbanks sent the headline, "Miller family under federal investigation. Multi-million-dollar real estate fraud exposed. Son-in-law missing. Warrant issued for arrest." I read it once, then deleted it. The past was closing its own door. I stood on the porch watching Harper water the tomatoes. The wind was soft. The world was calm. And somewhere out there, the Miller's house of cards was collapsing in slow motion. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet man in a denim jacket, walking away while the guilty fall into the hole they dug for themselves. I stepped off the porch and joined my daughter in the garden. "Who was calling earlier?" she asked. Nobody important. Because the truth was simple. Brody and his family chose greed over blood. They chose cruelty over love. They tried to break me, and in the end, they only destroyed themselves. And that was the real finale.